That
Yep,
means that,
yep.
it was mine just quit. I'm assuming it was my phone. Because that
I had
means
no idea.
yeah, that sucks so much. Because that was like so there was some really good answers there, like and stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
that's going to cut the video into on the
yeah,
story, isn't it?
it's not even saved it. It's gone. It's like it never
Well,
happened.
hey, Stu, good to see you. How you doing?
Good to see you, mate. I haven't seen
It's
you in a
been such a
while.
while.
Did you do that haircut yourself? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
just
can you
those new
tell?
clippers. New
Yeah,
clippers.
yeah. Hey, but we
Oh
have
man.
slightly more live viewers. Hey, Ollie, how you doing, man? Yeah, so here we are.
Yeah.
Where were we?
It was like you touched on. It was uh, everything has to come together, whether that's you as a person, your ability with a camera, and the kind of the message that you put out there to
Yeah,
for your
yeah,
branding and
totally.
stuff. Yeah,
Totally. Yeah. I think if you keep on top of your mindset and how you approach running a small boutique kind of business, then everything else kind of falls into place. And I'll tell you something actually, one thing I do, especially on wedding days, like the morning of when I wake up in like some poxy B&B and eat like a sort of anemic sausage, after I've had, like my shower and I've gotten dressed and I'm about to head out to a wedding, I like I will quite cringily like read to myself some like statements about like this day's going to be the best day. We're going to do all this
okay.
stuff. I'm really thinking about like approaching it from a sort of a physical, emotional, mental kind of like points of view. Really, really getting quite woo woo
Okay.
with like all the sort of mental attitude
Feel good
to
stuff.
things. So yeah, pretty much.
So like, is that kind of you'd present that personality to an inquiry kind of straight away when you get an inquiry? Are you going back to them like, "Hi, I'm Will," which is like how your website starts, isn't it? That's on the homepage. Like,
Yeah.
are you straight away like, boom, and on the day does that translate to you being kind of really energetic and involved with the guests and things? Like,
It really varies. So like I think you've got to roll with what energy. Oh
is
man, I'm saying the
appropriate
word
for yeah,
energy. What's
yeah,
wrong with me? No, that's not what I mean. I don't believe in energy as a thing. I mean, like if let's say you want to you get you're doing a portrait shoot with a couple who um, uh, basically if you like get different kind of vibes coming from different people, you have to reflect and mirror that a little bit and kind of
100%.
lead
Yeah,
them in that sense. So if you've got like a couple who are like full of beans and energy on a wedding
yeah.
day, and like we go and do their portrait session and they're like fizzing with energy, I don't want to go like, okay, guys, let's do a
Bring
really
it down.
quiet,
Yeah,
intimate. Um, and likewise, if you get people, I know it sounds a bit weird, but like if someone writes to you in a certain way, you want to kind of reflect that a little bit, I
yeah,
think, as
yeah,
well, because you want to talk to people in the way that like they talk, and that's just getting along with people, really,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's a very sort of personable job. So yeah, to some extent, it's partly like what's my brand, but also what's the best way to bring the best out of the person that you're working with, the
Yeah.
people that you're working with.
Yeah. So like let's bring sort of videographers into the equation now. Like
Mm.
how much of a sort of percentage of your weddings now are you working with videographers? Have you seen that grow over the years? Has that changed as your experience has got better, maybe?
Yeah, I think it has. I think I think there's a couple of things going on there. So there are more photographers, wedding photographers, than there are videographers.
Yeah.
And I think if you're having both at the wedding, you've probably got a little bit more budget for it, right? Because you just have to
Yeah. Yeah.
spend more. And I think as I've gone along over the last few years, yeah, there are more often wedding videographers
Mhm.
um, there. Uh, but yeah, you just sort of it's interesting that like wedding videographers are as different and varied as photographers
Yeah,
can
yeah,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So how if there's going to be a videographer, is it more common that the bride would reach out to you as a sort of point of reference, experience, knowledge first, or would they go off and find someone on their own? What's the kind of breakdown there? Is it all the time they're saying, "Will, who do you know?" Go from there.
Yeah. So typically, I think most couples that I've worked with tend to do things in a similar order, right? So you get the venue, and you find the photographer, then you look at going to taste cake and stuff like that. But normally around the time that they've sort of like signed with me, then they'll say, hey, we're looking for a videographer as well. Do you know anyone? And I'll normally have like a list of people, of which you're on that I'll say, hey, yeah, these people are good. You know, I've worked with them before. I rate their work. Yeah. And so normally that's how I end up working with sort of various videographers. But you know, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like oftentimes you make that recommendation, and then 12 months down the line, you go, oh, hey, you're here.
Yeah, because it just gets forgotten about after like that week or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I find that with I actually find that with bands more often than I do with videographers. Okay. There's just like one band that I recommend all the time because I really like shooting dance floors where they are. So people will be like, we don't know much about bands. Have you got any recommendations? And I'll say yes.
Who is it?
Truly Medley Deeply. Have you ever shot them?
I feel like I've heard them. I've heard the name. I've seen them sort of bouncing around the groups.
They do this like they have this format where there's like two of them with like a guitar and like a little sort of snare drum synth kit, and they do medleys of songs, and like they just like they ramp the crowd up to incredible levels of frenzy, and then it's really fun to photograph that.
Great to shoot. Because you love shooting the dance floor stuff, don't you? Like
I do. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I don't put a limit on how long I stay at a wedding day because, well, a lot of the time it's like, well, what else am I going to go do? You know, people are paying a lot of money for me to be there, and I think it could. I wouldn't want. I know everyone has different decisions about how they do things, but for me, putting a limit on the amount of time that I'm there feels kind of sad because I'm like, well, I don't want to miss out what's happening, and like, what if something incredible happens as soon as I go, and you know, like I especially if like the dance floor's like kicking off as well, it's just really fun to knock around because like, especially if I'm like out of London, like if I'm like a 3-hour drive away, I'm going to be staying at a Premier Inn round the corner.
Yeah, there's nothing to go back to. So
what am I going to do? Like, I can't drink because I'm driving. Yeah. Right, number one. And you know, if it was like a 10-hour coverage and I finish after the first dance, it's like super. Can't wait to go to the Premier Inn. Wow. Look at all the other things you can do on this A road. No, there's nothing. So
the A road.
Man, I love a good A road.
The wedding supplier's best friend.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So where am I going with this? So there's a videographer there. You're there. How do you kind of play it on the day? Like how do you ideally how would you want to play it, or are you flexible with how maybe they'll have a little bit more influence, or at certain parts of the day maybe somebody takes the lead more than others, or things like that?
I think it really comes down to sort of like what the couple value most. If they've gone, you know, we've booked you, Will, but really we're more excited about Stu, I'll be like, okay, let him lead, and I'll follow along.
Okay.
Typically, more often than not, it tends to be because they've booked you that way around. I tend to find it that you just sort of you find a balance. You have to find what works well for the couple, but also works well with how the videographers work as well, and everyone works differently. I think a good rule of thumb though is that if you see yourself looking down the barrel of someone else's lens, get out of the way. Yeah. And that's what I tend to do. Like, oh God, I'm right here. So yeah, but like I think what normally works quite well is but I always think about portraits, right? So when you're having you're doing portraits during a wedding day, there have been times, granted reasonably few, where like there's been like there's been a videographer where there's been like a lot of work to do, like to go okay, like let's chill out a little bit here, because I think if there's two photographers and two videographers, and then you can go off into like a field somewhere and you can really overshoot and kind of crowd a couple, and depending on how how they feel about it. You want to be like as tuned in to what matters most to them above everything else.
Yeah.
So like it's never happened, but if let's say like a videographer or a videographer team were like we're going against what I thought the couple really wanted, I would try and like engineer that differently. But generally speaking, like if you get a good kind of like working situation going, it tends to be like a kind of a tag team situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think the tag team thing is the best way to do it. As long as but everybody has to be on the same page and be reading the situation the same
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And like I'm lucky enough to say that for 99% of the weddings I've shot at, the videographers that turn up have been booked by the same couple and are like really lovely, good eggs. And so we just sort of get on and we just get on with the work, really, and produce something amazing for that couple to have for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And that's what really matters.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, it's definitely like I think as long as they're nice people and stuff and have an awareness of situations and the ability to read situations, I think that's the most important thing about this sort of relationship. Like, do you get asked, like, will you get on with a videographer much? You know, like the question's kind of phrased in, if we get a videographer, does that like impact how you work? Does that sort of angle of the question ever come up for you, or not really?
So not sort of, but like, I think there's just an expectation that like, you know, that you will. And I think that's a fair expectation. Like, will you get on with them? Oh gosh, absolutely not. I refuse to. No, like that is just, you can't. Again, it's like you can't be. You just can't be precious about it. It's a service you're providing for the couple. You know, even if the worst were to happen, you still got to put a smile on your face and fix problems and move forward. But like, I don't really think that's. I mean, touch wood, that's never happened to me. But no, I think sometimes couples do think about that. They're like, we'd really like our videographer and photographer to get on well together and work well together. I think that's why I get asked to recommend people, because, you know, if I've had lots of good experience with working with someone before, then it follows that recommendation would kind of work through. So yeah, I think that's why that question doesn't get asked so much anymore, because I tend to recommend people and then they get booked. So yeah.
That's a good point, actually. I've never really thought about that before. Maybe I get asked that. I mean, I never get asked it like in a really cold, hard, serious way, but maybe in passive, you know, it just comes up as the inquiry goes on or the conversation goes on. And I think maybe it is more with if it's not from a recommendation, if it's just from like a Google inquiry or something like that. So,
I think it's also like, as couples will realize as they book a photographer and a videographer, that you're going to be sharing shoulder space and like looking. So, you know, it can be worth just asking the couple as well, like, what do you prioritize? Like, because if you prioritize getting an amazing video, I'll fall back and like, and just like give them priority, or like, you know, whatever. But you know, it's the question's always going to be, what does the couple value? Like, what is most important to them, and what's going to make them the happiest when they look back at all their stuff? And then, so long as the videographer and the photographer are approaching with that same mindset, then you're golden.
You're good. It's a very good, like, humble approach to that. Yeah, that's. I'd love to, if I was a couple, I'd love to hear you say that. You know?
If there's one thing that I've always said about myself, is that I am probably the best humble person that I know. You know, just hands down.
It's not lost on me that. So if it was, I mean, we're not going to talk about video that much more, but if it was somebody that you'd never worked with before, would you reach out to them beforehand, or is it common that they reach out to you? Because I used to always phone the photographers beforehand just to say hello and stuff. And then I got one say, "Oh, it's a bit weird you phoned me," and it kind of really threw me, because I'm like, "What? I'm just trying to be nice," and you know, they just delivered it in a really like kind of cut, harsh way. I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I just went on to email, and then I kind of got to the thought of like, well, we're equal, so it's not on me to always reach out. So I'm just curious, do you reach out to newbie people, or? Nope.
I don't honestly. I've just I think yeah, because I occasionally get emails from like videographers and stuff like that as well. And it's like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, that's fine, but I've never bothered going out of my way to do that in the other direction, just because yeah, I make the assumption that like, you know, we've got a job to do on the day and we're going to get on. We are. And I just haven't got enough time. Just like, I'm too busy editing or like frantically trying to finish a series of YouTube videos before I go back to finishing the editing. I haven't got enough time to email. And also like, I wouldn't know what to say. Just like, hey.
Yeah, that is the weird thing. Sometimes it's
See you
like,
there.
okay, we've run out of conversation now, like after 25 seconds. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but I don't think it really matters at the end of the day.
No.
You know, as soon as you walk in that room, you get the feeling, you know, you get the gist of what somebody's going to be like within 30 seconds of shooting. You can pretty much tell, you know, if it's going to be an easy or one or, you know, things like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like let's throw it back a little bit to not so much on the wedding day. What do you do in terms of getting coverage? Do you push for publication and things, or how do you go about, you know, getting your work out there aside from like sort of simple posting on Instagram?
So uh, do I even post on Instagram enough?
Oh,
Oh,
wait,
Stu,
yeah, I know. It's all
what's he
gone
done?
wrong today. I've just flipped the camera, but it's not
You flipped the
it's
camera. It looks
it's
like
not
you've gone
flipping round.
interstellar.
Oh yeah,
Oh, there we
exactly.
go. Live stream,
Yeah.
love it. What I do to get coverage. So I when I do my blogging, I like normally optimize by venue name. Oh, this is really interesting, exciting chat, isn't it? This is how I optimize my blog posts. Um, but yeah, I also like I will occasionally I say occasionally I will systematically submit to different wedding blogs as well, like Rock My Wedding, Love My Dress, Whimsical Wonderland Weddings, all that kind of stuff. What I really need to get better at is like guest posting on other websites and, you know, backlinks and all that kind of stuff.
Like
But like this, yeah, and just I've never done Instagram. I never shown my face on Instagram in like a video format before. Maybe this will like maybe you're like this is
I'm
my
the
first
first.
taste of this
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And now you'll just see me video myself
It's all
constantly
uphill from here, man.
down. Let's be honest. No, so I what do I do? I don't know. A lot of my my inquiries come from referrals as well, and so I do lots of. I kind of get inquiries from all over the shop, but one of the biggest things I do is treat my couples really well, and then they recommend me to their friends, or people will see me shooting at a wedding and be like, holy shit, he's still here at midnight.
Yeah.
I want him at my wedding to get that dance floor, our dance floor. Those dance floor shots, I mean. So yeah, kind of all over the shop, but like I really like writing. I really like writing different blogs and stuff, and I should really try and like.
You should embrace that. Yeah,
I should do something about that.
That's a USP. That is in the wedding industry. You enjoy writing blogs.
I do. Well, I mean, like there is that kind of. It can be really difficult to write wedding blogs sometimes, because you can fall into that trap of writing for Google rather than for people, where you'll like optimize for a venue name and then just like robotically say it at the beginning of a paragraph. When really, I think it's much more valuable. Like if someone's found their way to your website, they want to read like really interesting and engaging copy, and finding like a way of doing that like also kind of appeals to Google at the same time is a really tricky thing to get. And I don't think I've got there yet, but you know, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Until they change the algorithm, in which case
it's just
start again.
Yeah, because I was paying for some SEO stuff last year, and one of the weird things she said was like include when you're blogging about the venue, include like parking and stuff, because if you think about it, most people are gonna like Google what the parking situation is. So I don't.
So you would
like,
want to write on your blog, when I arrived at this barn, the parking situation at this barn was fantastic.
Yeah, you got to walk. You don't have far to walk. It's all good.
Absolutely refuse to do that. I can't think of anything worse. That's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Is it? Oh, sorry. That's what I got told.
Let me tell you, the loos. Oh, they were so clean.
It's that. What's the luxury portaloos that they have at weddings? What are they called?
Oh, I know what you mean.
There's one of them, isn't it? It's like the VIP.
Give them a few hours and they're not that luxury.
They're as blue as any other one.
Oh, there's a Sure deodorant in here. My. Oh, and then like 3 hours
It's
later,
gone.
it's a war zone. Listen, we started talking about parking and the viewers have gone down. So obviously I don't think you should put it on your blog.
Right, okay.
Nah,
let's go back then. Let's go real stuff.
Also, hello to people who are joining, by the way.
Yeah, if anybody's
Hello,
got
Lucy.
questions, please send
Throw
us
your
some
questions in, and I will. And I will try to not just like make jokes.
Because it cut off now, my timing's all gone out as well. So I'm like,
No.
I'm just floundering around here.
Hey, Paul.
Oh, Paul's here. Hello, Paul. What's the? Yeah, I've lost my way here. So, what's the biggest challenge for you shooting on the day?
Ooh,
Logistically, or like a sort of moment of the day.
All right, two things. No, I don't find the shooting itself challenging. Like, I know what's happening. I back myself. Honestly, the two things that came to mind were comfortable enough shoes and snacks. I can keep snacks in my bag, and like I have a little grenade protein bar that I can just like at like a certain point, because there is a long gap between eating, and I need to eat. But honestly, like this is not the answer you wanted, and this is totally going off the reservation. But like, I have a real hard time finding the right shoes that are just like comfortable all day. Like I've tried like boots, I've tried boat shoes, I've tried like brogues, and like by about 10 o'clock, I'm like, oh gosh, dear, it's no good.
So what have you settled on for? Well, what this season would have been? Did you have a fresh pair ready to break in? 2 months ago,
I honestly, I had a plan in mind around the beginning of May to go shopping for my sort of 2020 outfit. Yeah, and like, because I'd done that rebrand, I was like, what would the new brand? What would he wear? Which would have to be slightly cooler than what I used to wear. In theory, we've got a question on the old chat.
So shoes is an interesting one for me though, because I started. I'll usually wear shoes until the ceremony's finished, and then I've been slipping into all black Nikes. Like they're so plain, so you can't tell that they're trainers. But yeah,
that's such a good idea. I did actually once switch into trainers for a dance floor. No one noticed, even though I thought they would like notice.
Yeah.
Like, why would they? And I was like, oh man, this is the best. I think that's changing. That's a really good idea.
Because obviously, first impressions, you don't want to rock up with a pair of trainers on. Probably if you've got like a church or whatever.